We drum in that messaging around the dangers of COVID pretty diligently for a full 2-week period of sustained propaganda.
Hello, yes, From the Fringes, yes, and we're operating again.
Yes.
How are you, Jean?
Kia ora. Good morning.
Kia ora,
I'm
Jean.
very well, thank you.
Right, now we've been talking about the vaccines that are coming up, and Tamaki's saying in the Destiny Church that the elitist media are puppets of the New World Order. What do you think about the vaccines being used to as a cover-up while police are uplifting children and the attack on the family still going on?
That's an interesting concept. I agree with some of what's being said. I think that the vaccines have caused they've taken our interest away from, and COVID has taken our interest away from some of the more pressing serious social issues in this country, and I agree with that statement.
Yeah, so we're basically saying there, end lunacy, lockdown and lies, unite as a nation to save our tamariki, mothers and fathers for freedom, no fly, no jab, no mark. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Do you think that the vaccine is safe?
Well, they've just trialled a rollout overseas in Britain, and they are suggesting that they're going to roll it out across New Zealand, and there's going to be a vaccine for every person. It's come about because of, well, I don't know. When you look at the vaccine, who owns them? Who's making money out of them? The conspiracy theory that Microsoft is involved in all of this, and Bill Gates is part of the conspiracy theory around owning the rights to the vaccinations and making multi-billions of dollars out of it. We can't deny the fact that around the country, around the world, for many, many years, the ordinary flu killed a million people.
Yes.
No, we didn't see lockdown for that, and now we've got this COVID vaccine debacle. And
now we have had a major protest today outside the family court.
And outside the Ministry for Children, Oranga.
Yep. And we're going down to the police station. They should be there at the moment. But Steve was talking about the bullying that's going on by police, and we know the police collude with the organisations to uplift children. What do you think of the bullying? Have you seen a lot of the media coverage?
Absolutely. You just have to look. There was a 1982 Entities Act, that 1982 Crown Entities Act, which forced all government departments and some non-government departments into a relationship. Now, they've been very secretive about their roles, their rights, and and the way in which they have now taken over what the country has seen. The fact that you go into hospital to have a little baby, and while you're having your baby, someone knocks at the door and tells you that they're going to take it. So when in this country did we lose the right to be told what was going to happen to us? And also the very, very fact that the human rights are being taken away by these Crown Entities Act, where government departments collude with each other to decide what's the best for you and your children and your whānau.
Yes, so we were talking today about United Families for Justice, Kiwi, our fight, our right to family court justice. OT and court-appointed officials, New Zealand police, are destroying our families with no accountability. And we focused on family court officers impeding our right to access free forms and justice, our right to self-litigate. Have you helped many fathers and mothers to self-litigate to get access to their own children?
Well, I've just begun to become more aware of that. And when you are a midwife, I've been a midwife 30 years, you don't realise or understand that you actually then become part of the problem. Because when you don't understand the powerful messages that you give to families and whānau, and then you collude with your own DHB to prevent mothers from taking their newborn babies home, you become part of the problem. And it's not until we start to unpack that and really look at it and make sense of it that we realise that a lot of the stuff we do blindly,
Yeah.
without any question. And that has to stop. We
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
stop acting
Hello?
blindly in blind faith, being told by our employer, the DHB or anybody else, that what we have to do as part
Well,
of
we know there's abduction going on with the
Absolutely.
thousands of uplifts that are going on. And we had one mother who objected to us, and she says, well, I'm all right with my child. And they don't realise that 5% of the uplifts are justified. We know that. But it's the other
Absolutely.
it's the other 95% where they're prefabricating evidence, and the judge goes on hearsay. They don't even recognise guardianship rights of the mother, and they kill the bonds between mothers, fathers and their children. What can you tell us about that?
It's been done since the 1950s. So between 1950 and 1968, 90,000 children were adopted in this country, and half the parents are fighting today
Yeah.
to find out where their children are. And, you know, we've got this archaic 1955 Adoption Act,
Yes.
which
Yep.
prevents parents and children from finding each other. What the hell is that all about?
And they mentioned state care abuse today, and how many
Absolutely. We've got-
hundreds of thousands of cases
Yeah.
since the 50s.
Yeah.
And there's never been justice done. They've never looked at reparation or what they do about it. And then the commission at a top level looks into it, but they do nothing about the victim, the person who suffered the horrendous abuse.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, they've had 5 reviews since the uplift at Hastings with the Oranga Tamariki, and I'm glad to say I was the midwife involved with that, and I said, no, get out of here. You can't take it.
What really happened there? Have you witnessed the number of uplifts where the mother's having the child and then the police come in?
Not personally, no, but because people saw that, rang me and told me what happened in
Oh,
these cases.
okay.
And that's happened across the country for years. But
Yeah.
you know what? They've said the uplifts under Section
Think of
78 were illegal. We've got Peter Bosch here, the commissioner, who said it's uneven. It was evil and illegal. Now, we've got a case in Wellington where a young Pākehā girl had her baby taken, but parents were able to get lawyers and fight them and get the baby back, and they got a compensation payment.
I was in Judge
$1,000.
Bosch's office with Kerry Bevan in the men's rights movement, and we said there's about 150 fathers that are suiciding in relationship to the family court. This is probably about 15 years ago.
Yes.
And he actually said there was only 20 that were dying in relationship to the family, but we know that the family courts are responsible for the suicide toll because they alienate families, they kill the bonds between mothers, fathers and their children, and there's no mediation, you know what I mean?
And you're right, and what you're saying is correct. What
Yeah.
we have in this country is we've got, and people hate hearing this, but it's true. We are a founding state of part of Britain, so we
Yes.
come under the Westminster law, and we are still bound by those laws. And you look
Yes.
at Canada, America, and New Zealand. We have a founding. Our laws are based on
A Westminster
British
system.
Westminster law. Now, if you look closely at our social justice system, it mirrors Canada, America, and Australia.
Right.
Yeah.
That the Indigenous people in those countries suffer the same as our Indigenous people
Wow.
in New Zealand
Yeah.
today.
How would you change that? I mean, you'd make judges answerable to the people, and you'd have a constitution, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. We need to get away from a British colony. We're not a British colony anymore. COVID has shown us the way.
Well, what do you think of Meghan and Harry, a very controversial interview,
I thought
and her saying that she felt she was pushed into suicide,
Yeah.
and they were trying to say that her child could be dark.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's
this is a
right.
call for a separation from the Westminster system, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's embedded in racism and white supremacy. The whole thing. You know, they call themselves, the institution or the we have to get away from that. We're no longer a colonial country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our own country. We have our own ways of doing things. COVID has shown us that we don't need to be part of the Commonwealth. For heaven's sake. You know, Māori have been calling for tino rangatiratanga since 1840. And, you know, the rights of Māori to be able to look after the water. The water is a huge issue. Why should overseas water companies come into this country and take billions and billions of gallons of water, bottle it for free and sell it across the world? And then we have to buy it back.
Now, Russ Remington said to me, because he's on the regional council here, that we don't want to decentralise the councils and have one rule of authority from the top, because we're going to lose our democratic right.
We've already lost it. We've already lost. Look how many bottling water companies there are in each of our towns.
So the politicians are a law unto themselves. They're not serving families or the people, are they?
Absolutely.
This is one reason why we got rid of Winston Peters.
Although,
and you look at Helen Clark. Helen Clark refused to sign the Indigenous rights of people. Why? Because she was already in negotiations with China over a free trade agreement. That allowed China to come into this country to take our water for free. People go, oh yeah, but what would signing seabed and foreshore have done? Well, actually, Māori would have had control over natural resources as tangata whenua. Do you think many Māori would have allowed, and iwi would allow China to continue to take our water for free?
No, I don't think they would.
Now, while you're talking about Māori, apparently there's been a ruling from the Ombudsman in terms of the Treaty Waitangi and Māori. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I don't know what that is, because I've been too busy in my head with my PhD at Te Whare Wānanga Awaniarangi, and my PhD is whānau Māori experience of tamariki forcibly removed by the state. It's been my 4-year journey, and you know, until we get to understand what politics and politicians do to us, the ordinary family, we don't really realise the harm they do. Look,
we need to expose the politicians and the fact that they're not serving us.
No, they don't. They serve themselves. Look at the number of state houses that have been taken down across the country. My staff here at Choices, I work in a Māori midwifery group with 5 Māori midwives. We got families, were given a fortnight's notice before Christmas that their whole street of state houses were being taken down. You know, in Hastings, they've got bare land where they've taken previous state houses down 12 years ago, and they still haven't rebuilt them.
Now, Steve this morning talked about social engineering and eugenics and culling out the lowlife, and the fact that this whole system is based on zoning. You know, $650,000 homes, and even the mayor was talking about it, 3-storied buildings, and then people on the street and 20,000 couples have to live in cars.
A homeless, and you're right, because you know what? The politicians, the middle class, rich white people who are voters and who vote for each other, decide the community's worth. They then decide who gets all the assets and who gets the contribution. And it's easy. They go in there, pull down all the state houses because poor people don't vote, never put them back up again, so poor people become homeless and live in cars. And then they say, oh, you can't provide for your children, we'll take them off them and put them in oranga tamariki.
Hello, Jean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I'm Janny Pormanuka, I'm the co-host, and I just wanted to cut in to ask you what you thought of the legislation change about 3 months ago. So where the Chief Executive of Oranga Tamariki had to stand down.
Well, I thought that the Oranga Tamariki have done a miserable job for people. And when you look at how they've developed their policies, they've copied Canada and adopted Canadian policies that don't work in Canada. So why the hell would we have them here? And a child welfare service is, we've got 2 services in this country which are led by ministers. That's the Corrections Department and Child Welfare. Neither of them work for the people. They are working, those two services are run by politicians. They then become the mercy of the voters. So people vote for, we want tighter regulations around prisoners and we want to make sure that they're locked up and they throw the key away. That's the mentality of reintegration in this
which is not always
country.
helpful, is it?
No.
So oranga tamariki has to go. We're still promoting that at the moment. One thing I did want to talk to you about, Jean, was we realise of all our protesting, raising awareness, that the real goal is structural transformation, that you need to teach advocacy, you need to teach mothers and fathers how to defend themselves in court, you need to have father-mother mentoring, and that's why we're starting up a mothers and fathers drop-in centre where they can come in and we listen to their stories. But what do you do about disaffected mothers who are so traumatised? And I've said this to Steve, we have to teach them to work through their trauma, their heartache. Otherwise, they're not able to defend themselves.
And you know what? It starts before birth. We've got all of the antenatal education programs run through DHBs across the country. Those people decide what is taught and who it's taught to. You know, we need kaupapa Māori programs in the communities where families feel safe to go and have antenatal education away from the watchful eye of an NGO, a Crown entity. You know, we need to change, as you say, the structures. Right now, there's a one-size-fits-all mentality in this country. It's perversive, and it's led by people who don't really understand or want changes. They like the status quo. It maintains... Because
they make money.
Hold.
It becomes a feeding frenzy, doesn't it? Like, you know,
it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Multi-billion-dollar. Wow.
How do we change it?
Well, it's not going to ever change. It's the consumerisation of misery. Misery of the poor.
So the people, until the mothers and fathers around this country wisen up, come together and protest, come together and do proper advocacy, self-representation, learn to be reparented, until that happens, we're wasting our time, aren't we?
Well, the sad fact of the matter is we've got more people in this country who are more worried about where they're going to sleep tonight, more worried about how they're going to feed themselves and their children, worried about what's going to happen to their future.
That's a distraction, because while we're suffering, they're creaming it at the top. And that's the problem.
And those people cannot organise themselves to be militants or activists because they're worried about their everyday, how am I going to feed myself and where am I going to sleep tonight?
Now, Jean, we'd like to have you on our Families for Justice new charity, which we're going to start up.
I'd love to be on.
Would you like to be on our board?
What role would you play? An advisor or...
Well, I'll be a quiet little person in the back. I can make cups of tea.
Good.
I can do the dishes. And I can
we wouldn't do that.
Yeah, because they've got a parent-to-parent group there, training in workshops, and they train up the facilitators and tutors, creating support networks, you know, and this is for disabled children. Where is the one for all the mothers and fathers around the country?
Exactly.
And they've got 12 branches, and we need to have these branches going around the country. I'd like to thank you.
Start one up in Hastings.
Right, we could duplicate this right around New Zealand. Thank you very much for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much,
It's been
Jean.
a wonderful morning. Thank you.
Okay, radio, bye-bye. This is From the Fringes for another week. Thank you for listening.